Welcome to Lattes and Laundry, a podcast created to keep you company as you fold the clothes or for when you take your well-deserved coffee break. Life at home, while never dull, can sometimes be a little lonesome. My hope is that this podcast makes you feel like you have a friend with you as you go about your day. I'm so glad that you're here. Hello friends, welcome back to Lattes and Laundry. I am your host Emily, and in today's episode we're going to talk about keeping little ones entertained at home. I hope that you are all having a good Monday so far. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed to this channel. We actually have passed 100 subscribers on this channel already, which is incredible. Thank you so much to everyone who listens to the episodes or who shares the episodes. I appreciate all of the engagement so much, and I'm so excited that we finally passed 100 subscribers so very quickly. So thank you for that. So as I said, we're going to talk about keeping little ones entertained. For reference, I have a 3 and a 4-year-old, and we have spent a lot of time at home in the past 4 years. I am more comfortable now with taking them out of the house than I used to be. We used to just stay home exclusively all the time, and they've gotten a little bit more independent, so I can take them out a little bit easier. But even still, we spend a lot of time at home, and the only screen time that my kids have is TV. Select TV shows and movies that I let them watch. But I try not to let them watch TV all day long. Sometimes there's exceptions to this if I'm not feeling good or if they're not feeling good or, circumstantially. But we try not to do TV too much. But I will admit to you, sometimes it does get a little bit excessive and I try to pull back. But this is not an episode about screen time. I just am trying to give you a little outline of what we do. The only screens that we have is TV time. We allow some TV time. But, especially if you're trying to maybe avoid more screen time or cut back on screen time, they need something to keep them entertained. And I feel like the older they get, the more they need to keep them entertained, as far as they're not, when they're babies, they're content to just sit there and watch or look at a little play gym thing. But as they get older and older, they, want projects to do and they want things to keep them entertained. I do notice that a lot more now that they're 3 and 4, their imaginations are just completely boundless. And nobody teaches them how to play, but my kids will play pretend all the time. And I'm like, nobody taught them how to do that. Their imagination is just huge right now. So I'm going to kind of in quick succession give you some things that we have done. I always look in the thrift store for homeschool books or preschool books, and I've actually gotten a couple of old preschool activity books and books like that have lots of activities for kids to do. So just as a side note, I would definitely keep an eye out in your thrift store book section for things like that, because there are tons and tons of ideas. But I'm going to just kind of give you a list of things that I have done with my children that they have enjoyed. So the first one, it might be controversial to you. You can do the same thing and do it differently if you don't want to do it with the things that I do it with, but we do Play-Doh and kinetic sand. And you can actually make your own Play-Doh. There are recipes for making non-toxic Play-Doh, and it's probably a really good idea because the kids do kind of like to eat the Play-Doh for whatever reason. But I've actually never tried to make my own Play-Doh. I've thought about it, but I've never done it. But people have given us Play-Doh, so they like to play with Play-Doh. Play-Doh is one of those things, though, where it doesn't keep their attention terribly long, because a lot of the things that we have for them to play with it, they kind of need my help on, like the little haircut chair and the little not barbershop, dental thing. So the Play-Doh, they love it, but it doesn't keep their entertainment that long. But the kinetic sand, they absolutely love. They got some kinetic sand for Christmas, and me and my husband bought them a little play table. And I'll link it down below because it's a really cool little table. It's like the top is a Lego top, or you can flip it and have it be a solid top. Or you can take the top off and the inside is like a sensory bin. You can do kinetic sand, you can do a water table, you can do sensory bins that you make yourself, so like rice or beans or whatever you want to do. So it's a really neat little table, and I will get the table and take the top off and I'll pour all their kinetic sand in it, and they have little molds and little rollers, little cookie cutters. They put their cars in it. They have a little shovel. They love it. They will sit there for an hour solid and just play with the kinetic sand. So I don't know if everybody wants to do kinetic sand, but if you didn't want to do kinetic sand or Play-Doh, you could do a sensory bin. You could get some sand from somewhere. You could buy sand from the store, like sandbox sand, and do something like that. You do risk making a pretty big mess, which they make a pretty big mess with kinetic sand as well, but I just sweep it up and put it back in the bag. But you can also do these kinds of activities on your porch as well if you don't want to do them inside the house. But that is something that my kids love. Another thing is car wash. They like to play car wash with the toy cars. You can do this outside. You can do it on a water table, or I have done it at the kitchen sink, and I'll let my son get all his little Hot Wheels, and I'll give him an old toothbrush, and I'll put dish soap in the sink on one side with water and have him scrub them, and then I'll lay a towel out and he can rinse them and put them on the towel to dry, and he really enjoys that. Outside picnics. I've done that before, and take a blanket out in the backyard and take them a little snack basket and little water bottles and books and sit on the blanket and just have like an outdoor picnic. Going outside in general, of course, is great for little kids. It's so great for their development, for them to go outside. It's so great for your body, for you to get sunshine and fresh air. So, of course, but you can take a little picnic and make it a little bit extra. As well as with going outside, every time we go outside, I have a basket outside on the porch that's our nature basket. So whether we're staying in the yard or even if we're going for a walk, we take the basket with us because they always want to pick up sticks and rocks and acorns and everything. So I'll bring the basket outside. And in fact, the other day when we went outside, my son was like, I need my basket because he was picking up rocks. So we always take a nature basket. I recently found a second watering can at the thrift store, and so both my kids have a watering can, and the other day when we were outside, I was letting them water my flowers, and, they dumped way too much water on them, but it was okay. But I taught them how to use the little outside spigot, and they would fill up their bucket, and then they'd come back and dump it on the brick or in the flower bed, and that kept them entertained for a very long time. They absolutely loved that. Another really simple one is sidewalk chalk and bubbles. They love that. We have little bubble machines, and you can get them fairly inexpensive. I think ours came from Five Below, maybe. Somebody gave them to us, but I think they came from Five Below, and they're just battery-powered little bubble machines. And I do it inside the house and outside the house, but they love it, and it saves you so much headache of trying to blow bubbles yourself, because I don't know about y'all, but after a couple of times of trying to blow bubbles on a bubble wand, I feel like I'm going to pass out. So having a bubble machine is like the best investment when you have kids, and they're not that expensive. And then sidewalk chalk, even if you don't really have a sidewalk, they can draw. If you have like a brick porch or a carport, they can draw on that. That's what they draw on at our house. I always keep a roll of brown paper. I actually had a lot of brown paper from where I used to sell vintage things, and I would wrap the packages in it. So I have several rolls of brown paper, and I'll just occasionally roll the paper out on the kitchen table and tape it down, and then give them paints or markers. You can buy non-toxic finger paint. Of course, get everything washable, because you will severely regret it if you don't, because even with the paper on the table, they still get it everywhere. But just rolling out that paper and letting them just have free range on the paper, and then once they're done, I just pull it all up and throw it away. And it's much easier than having them paint on just one little skinny piece of paper. And you can get those big rolls of brown paper at Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree is a really good place to find stuff to entertain them as well. They have all kinds of little outdoor things. They have all kinds of little craft projects now. They have paint. They have pipe cleaners, cotton balls, and glitter and all that stuff for craft projects. They have the little wooden things that they can paint. So there's tons of options at Dollar Tree if you're looking for things for your kids to be able to play with and do. I also like to have use little things around the house. So one day we had a party or a Christmas thing or something. I can't remember what it was. And we had all these cups, all these plastic red cups that were left over. And I decided to make my son a little tower out of the cups and then let him roll his trucks through it. And he thought that that was the best game in the world. And he caught on to it immediately. As soon as I set him up, he knew immediately he was going to drive his truck through it. He loved it. And those were just things that we had laying around the house. I also had balloons left over from a party. And I swear children love little balloons. I had just the little latex balloons. And one day we were having a rough day and I just wanted something to keep their interest for a little bit so I could kind of have a breather. And I found the balloons that I had left over from a party that I gave. And so I blew up a few balloons and that kept them so entertained. They loved it. They love hitting them up in the air and trying to keep them up in the air. They love it. Something that I do with their toys is I try to keep certain things up. Like I don't keep all of their toys out at all times because I think, number one, that kind of drives me crazy to have everything out. But number two, if you put it up, they kind of forget about it. So when they're walking around bored and they want something to do, if you bring something out that's been up for a while or that they know is like for a select activity, they will be so much more excited about it. And they will play with it and enjoy it so much more. So, for example, in our house, all of our puzzles, I have a dresser in my living room that has craft stuff, Play-Doh, bubbles. It has puzzles in the top drawer. And so they don't get the puzzles all the time. But if we're, having a moment where they seem to be kind of bored, and like, I do want to put parentheses right here for a second and say it's okay for your kids to be bored. Like I'm not putting this out here like that you have to always entertain your kids, because it is healthy for them to be bored because they usually will invent games, they'll play imaginative play. Like it's good for them to be able to make up their own fun. So the point of me telling you all this isn't to like say that your kids need to constantly be entertained. And my kids are really good about playing on their own and making up games and imaginative play. But y'all understand, when you're home all the time, you need activities sometimes. You don't always, sometimes if you're having a rough day, you need something to be able to pull out. So that's the point of this. Okay, out of the parentheses now. The puzzles, I'll keep the puzzles in the top drawer. And if we're having a moment, I will be like, do y'all want to do a puzzle? And they get so excited to do a puzzle because it's not something they get all the time. I do the same thing with our Mega Blocks. I do the same thing with the play food for the play kitchen, Magnetiles, Hot Wheel cars, like all of that stuff has boxes and it all gets put up in the closet. And then we pull it down at certain points, and then when we're done with one thing, we put it back in the box, put it back up, and if they want to get something else out, we can. But I just don't have all of that always accessible to them for the two reasons that I stated. Like I cannot have everything out at one time, and then they enjoy it more when they know it's not like an all the time activity, it's a very select activity. They enjoy it a whole lot more. I think also there are two different kinds of activities, or I guess there's three different things. There's your kids playing on their own, making up their games, making up their fun, and using their imagination completely unprompted. Then there is activities that are designed to help keep them entertained and having fun so that you can get things done. And then there are also activities that are involving everybody. They're like teachable moments, and things like letting your kids bake with you, for example, like that is like a teachable moment. It's also a bonding experience between you and your children, and it's a memory that you're making with your children. But it's also a mess because I could very easily bake a batch of cookies by myself and have them in and out of the oven pretty quick and not make as big a mess. But my kids love to bake with me, and that moment together is like creating a memory. And yes, it's going to make a mess, and yes, it's going to take longer, but it's creating a memory, and it's good for them. It's so good for them, and they love it. So there are like three different levels of fun for kids, and I think sometimes the same thing goes for craft projects. Like if we're going to do a specific craft project, I'm going to have to help them with it. So it's not something that they can do while I'm working in the house and cleaning and doing my to-do list. It's going to be something that we all three do hands-on, and I teach them and help them, and we create a memory, and it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be a little bit inconvenient to clean up afterwards, but it's still important. And sometimes I think you have to let go of the expectation. Like, you have this expectation of what baking with your kids is going to be like, and it might not look like the expectation you have in your head, but it's still important, and it's still creating a memory, and it's cultivating creativity and inspiration and fun. And I want my kids to have memories of me doing things with them and spending that time with them and teaching them and helping them learn. So I hope that this episode has been helpful to you. I hope that it has given you some ideas of some things that you can do at home with your kids and some ways that y'all can have fun. If it has helped you, please make sure to like this video, send this podcast to a friend that you think would benefit from it. And please tell me in your comments down below what you do for fun at home with your kids to keep them entertained, or how you have fun with your kids at home and do projects and all of that kind of thing. So leave that in the comments down below. Thank you for being here with me this week, and I will talk to you next time.